Hi, and welcome to the Complaining Cow Consumer Show on East London Radio. And today I have with me Tim Kelly, who's the Motor Claim Guru insurance expert. Welcome, Tim. Thank you for coming.
Morning, Helen. Thanks very much for having me.
Tell me, well, I know what you do, but tell my listeners a little bit about what it is that you do.
Aside from causing mischief, do you mean?
Yeah, I think you and me both.
What I do is I assist consumers when they're having difficulties with their insurance companies, is the short version of what I do. But my background is that I worked in the insurance industry for the best part of 20 to 30 years. I was made redundant twice and started working for myself. Previous to that, I've been helping people when they were having difficulties with their insurance companies and helping family and friends and forums. And I decided that after being made redundant and starting a business, that potentially what I used to do in helping people, that I could actually make into a business.
So tell me a bit about how you help people and why they need help with their insurance claim.
Well, what you have with insurance companies is that they feed on your lack of experience, and that could be anything from when you actually buy a policy to actually when you need the policy when you're claiming. And people, because it is a distressed sale, because it's a compulsory purchase that you need to have, so people that generally don't do an awful lot of research on it and read through the terms and conditions and how it might cover them, but also in the event when you're making a claim, they rely on the information that the insurance company gives them as the best way of claim, because all you ultimately want is for your car to be repaired. You know, the car's damaged, here's the keys, fix it, come back, it's fixed, and that's it. And in general, there's areas in that process that don't benefit you, because it might be that you bought your vehicle brand new, it could be it's a pride and joy, you bought it from a manufacturer, you're concerned about manufacturer's warranty. There's a lot of information that insurance companies advise you that isn't correct factually. So this generally annoys me. There's one side of it, but it's not just annoying, it does potentially breach the FCA regulations of how they should be treating you as a customer. So what I do is I apply what regulations specifically relate to the insurance company. I look at what the information is being provided to the customer, how it could affect you, and I use these regulations as tools to make insurance companies do what they should be doing in the first place.
So what would be some of the tips that you would give for people when they're looking for, their car insurance? Because it's quite easy just to go on a comparison site and go, oh, that's the cheapest, and just take it out. What should they be looking for?
This is a really good question, and I'm going to answer it, probably not in the way you think I'm going to answer it. So that rather than actually look at what policy or what a policy provides, the first thing you need to do is work out what you want yourself. There's no point actually buying something that does more than you need or less than you need. So the first thing you need to do is look at what is it that you want that policy to do. And the reason why there's big variances in price when you go on a price comparison website is because there might be varying levels of cover. It might be a different level of service that you're getting for it. So work out what you want. So when you actually have an accident, do you specifically want your vehicle to go to the repairer of your choice, or you're not bothered? So yeah, it's great that insurance companies have got processes there in the background where they've got their own approved repair networks. Are you happy for them to go, yeah, we'll take your car in, we'll repair it, give you a courtesy car, we'll do everything for you and crack on, and we'll do it at a lower figure? Well, if that's something you're happy with, then yeah, that's the type of policy you might want. But it might be that you want something more specific. It could be that you commute to and from a place of work. Well, one of the byproducts of COVID was that people got a lot more used to actually working from home rather than working from a place of work. And if that's you, then you actually might not need commuting to and from a place of work. That can massively reduce the cost of a premium to you, because it's the highest risk because you're driving in rush hour traffic and you're much more likely to have an incident. So something as simple as taking that off because you do work from home could make a significant reduction on your premium. But also other tips that are really beneficial are looking at different terminologies for what you do as an occupation. You wouldn't think that would be significant, but just rewording what you do as a job can have a massive difference, again, on the premium. For example, I'm an insurance consultant. So being an insurance consultant, my premium is slightly lower than what it would be if I said I'm a motor engineer. So I'm actually a loss assessor. I'm an expert witness that acts on behalf of claimants when making a claim through the court. So I inspect vehicles as a forensic engineer. Because that's linked to the motor trade, insurance companies see that as being high risk. So if I said I was an expert engineer forensically inspecting vehicles, they would lower my premium because of it. Because in the way I describe myself as being an insurance consultant, then just based on that terminology, it reduces the premium. So things like that are, before you just blindly go onto a price comparison website and put your details and look what quotes you're going to get, try playing around with the terminology of what you do as a job, an occupation, and who you work for. So There are laws and regulations in place that you need to abide by. So one of which is called the 2012 Consumer Disclosures and Representations Act. So there is a legal duty on you to provide accurate information, but within that, there is wiggle room, is probably the best way I can phrase it. So what I would do is when you put in a premium in, you put in your details into price comparison website, play around with that information of how you describe yourself. So as long as it's accurate, it's fine. Also look at putting additional people on the policy. The way an insurance company looks at a premium and how they underwrite it is based on risk. So it works on a basis of proportionality. So if you're a high risk driver and there's only you on the policy, when they underwrite that policy, they have no other option other than to look at you specifically as that risk. However, if you have somebody over the age of 25 and up to around the age of 55, so if you're a younger driver, a good thing to do might be to put a parent on there, or if you've got an older sibling, same again, put them on, as long as they've got more driving experience than you. So you're not necessarily using their no claims bonus or anything like that. It's just to do with their driving history. But what the insurance company will do is it'll split that risk across both people. And because proportionality applies, it then means you're driving the vehicle less and it should lower your premium. So there are a couple of tips you can use, but there are quite a few that I can actually advise you.
What happens when people, take out their insurance and they think they're completely covered for everything that they want, and then they hit a problem? What are the sort of problems that you see people getting with their insurance companies not paying out?
A lot of the primary things coming down to use. So I did a recent one and I really sympathise with this young man because it's quite an unfortunate situation. And he might have been slightly naive in what he'd done, but he hadn't necessarily done anything wrong. And he was a PT instructor at a gym. And what he'd done was he'd gone to the gym. He lived around the corner from where the actual gym was. So he didn't use his vehicle to actually commute there. But he went round to the gym, did his day's work, had a chat with a friend and said, yes, I'll meet up with you for a coffee later on. He then went home, got changed, got cleaned, all the rest of it, and then drove from his house to the gym. Whilst he was driving his vehicle into the gym, in the car park, he caught another vehicle. So when he made the claim to the insurance company, they asked what the circumstances of the claim were. He said, well, I drove into work. So in his head, he's thinking, I've gone into my workplace because it's where I work, not necessarily thinking that I'm doing it socially rather than from the workplace. So I drove into work, and when I was in the car park, I caught somebody else's vehicle. So the insurance company said, you're not covered for driving to and from a place of work as part of your policy. We're repudiating the claim, we're not covering it. So not only are we not covering the damage to your vehicle, we're also not covering the damage to the third party's vehicle. So when we claim out on that, so this potentially can be a lot worse than this. This is actually quite a simple scenario because there's nobody in the vehicle. But potentially, if this was on something like a roundabout and you've got into the back of somebody, your insurance company could be trying to pursue you not only for the damage to the vehicle, but it could be a personal injury claim or credit hire or credit repair. So looking at the contractor wordings are really, you need to pay attention to it. It's a primary thing, which you always talk about contracts. You do need to pay attention to them. But in this situation, the insurance company repudiated the claim and said they're not going to pay out for it. The customer was obviously distressed. He was a young lad. It was his first year of driving, didn't have any no claims, was already paying quite a high premium, was worried that he might not be able to insure himself. If you have a policy cancelled or refused, technically you are uninsurable in the eyes of an insurance company, certainly if you're young. So it would have meant that he couldn't afford to have a car, and it would have affected his lifestyle quite a large way. So within how a insurance company has to operate, they are bound by the FCA regulations. So just to give you a bit of a background of how insurance companies operate, we have an Act of Parliament. So anything that where you see is an Act of Parliament in law is something that's basically put there to protect consumers. So again, if you read Helen's book on how to complain, you'll see lots of things there on your statutory rights and acts of law. This is why it's important. So the actual specific act that relates to the financial industries is the Financial Services and Markets Act. And under that, we have a regulator, which is the Financial Conduct Authority. And we've got an arbiter, which is the Ombudsman, so the Financial Ombudsman Service. And across all three of these, they look at what regulations apply. So insurance companies have got specific regulations they have to abide by when they review on whether they actually apply or whether they can actually cancel a policy or claim or not. And what I brought to the insurance company's attention was the fact that the vehicle wasn't being used in the way they advised when they're saying they're cancelling the policy or cancelling the claim. When they have a situation where they wish to cancel a policy or claim, it has to be on the basis of some type of fraudulent activity or that it's non-disclosures and you've actively, willfully and intentionally gone out with the intent to deceive. So what I pointed out was the fact that they've misinterpreted the information that he provided. The point when he making the claim, he was on a social visit to his friend, going out for a coffee. He wasn't actually commuting to his place, and as such, when they cancelled the policy, they've done it incorrectly. On that basis, when they reviewed the information, they agreed. They then overturned their decision. They covered the damage to his car and to the third parties, and then everybody was happy. Something as simple as a misunderstanding in how a claimant is speaking to the insurance company, providing the information, can put you in a situation where you could end up with massive financial detriment. And it's just something dead easy, dead simple. It's a simple misunderstanding, but the people you're speaking to in the insurance company will literally take you literally. So if you say, I am going to work, they see it as you are going to work. Whether that's a social visit or something else. So you need to be quite clear and concise and explain things, where what happens is when you're speaking to a claims person, you're responding the way we are doing now within our conversation, in that we act naturally. So you ask me a question, I answer it, and you can quite easily get caught out. So you need to be very mindful that you are providing information that's going to be used on the basis of whether they satisfy that claim or not.
Have you had it's also about sort of people just not knowing their rights, isn't it? It's like, when you start quoting stuff and these companies bow back down. But have you had any cases where you felt that the insurance company has just really fought because actually it's a huge payout?
All the time. I'd like to say, the few and far between, not really. But no, Helen, it is regular, all the time. So there's things in terms of, it depends on the insurance company as well. What you need to understand about the insurance industry is that they are professional litigants, and they work on the basis of deny, delay, and defend. So when you deal with an insurance company, and certainly if you have an accident that's not your fault and you're claiming from another party, it's a war of attrition. So what they want to do is grind you down. And the higher the level of money is involved for it, the more they will fight for it, because they're very aware of how it could work against them, and what type of settlements they'll be paying out for it. So there's certain insurance companies, I won't mention them because it'd be unfair to them, but also saying this as well, there's actually insurance companies as well that will put on a non-disclosure agreement before it goes to court. Or, well, if it actually goes to court, before they settle, they'll actually settle it on the actual steps of the court, pretty much. That happens quite a lot. So what they'll do is they'll defend it all the way to court to make it a nightmare, and then they'll get to court and they'll go, you'll pay out, which is extremely frustrating. That happens quite a lot. They will try and find aspects of law not to pay out. So a good example of this might be something where, you drive along, you have an accident, it isn't your fault. It's totally slipped your mind that you should have MLT'd your car the week before. The vehicle's still completely roadworthy, and you'll mind your own business, but somebody's got into it. It's not your fault. And the at-fault insurance company will try and wiggle out of it and say something along the lines of that, as the vehicle didn't have an MLT at the time, it wasn't roadworthy, it should have been on the road, and as such, we're not going to pay out on it. Now, there's loads of specific pieces of case law that relate to situations like this that say that the fact the vehicle didn't have a current MLT on it doesn't matter. The fact that you've also been subject to something which is called a tortious action. So tort is an aspect of law, which is called a civil wrong. And all it basically means is that you're the injured party. So if somebody's damaged your property or you in some way, then you're subject to this tort. So under this aspect of law called tort, there's a civil wrong. It is wrong for them to then try and use another piece of what they might see as being law not to pay out, because fundamentally it's the result of somebody else's negligent actions that's caused you financial loss, and the fact the vehicle might not have done something that satisfied the Road Traffic Act in their eyes doesn't matter. So something again like that could be that your vehicle might have run out of road tax. It can even be you've not even got actual car insurance. This is how far it goes. But the fact the vehicle was on the road at a point, if it's subject to a non-fault accident, if somebody injures your property, you've still always got that right to compensation. But insurance companies will try and find any legal aspect they can, or little pieces of case law, not to pay out, even then when they're, even when they are liable for it.
So, what would you say would be sort of some of your biggest cases that you fought and won for a consumer?
There's big cases and there's also enjoyable ones as well. So
yeah. I mean, I often get asked, what's your biggest matter? It was not about that actually. For me, it's the ones where somebody's fought the hardest, or they've been treated so badly. But they're the ones that I remember, not the ones that are the biggest. But I think with cars, it might be quite interesting. Yeah,
and the other thing to bear in mind as well, it's not just cars that I deal with. So if it's got wheels and it's on the road, then I could deal with it. So I deal with a lot of commercial vehicles. It could be caravans, it could be classic cars, it could be bikes, it could be pretty much anything really. But one of the ones that was probably one of the largest, well actually no, this is the largest one, and the insurance company, I'll take my hat off to them, were fantastic. So I will mention them because they are great. So National Farmers Union, I think you're a fantastic insurance company and your quality of customer service is superb. In this specific situation, they got it slightly wrong. And there's a whole bunch of reasons in the background that I won't go into as to why it went wrong. But this person who I acted on behalf of, ironically, again, they were, before we started this conversation, now we were talking just before we started about solicitors. This customer was a solicitor, so they could have actually acted on their own behalf to deal with this case, but they chose to use me because I have a specific set of knowledge in this area that is beneficial. And they owned a horse box. Now, this horse box was quite unique because of its size. They had it for primarily because of where they lived, and it's quite tiny, quite small country roads, but also that when you get something like a horse box, you're kind of restricted. So you can go up to like a 7.5 ton size of wagon, which you can drive on a car license. Then over that, you need a HGV license. So most HGVs then are big, humongous things. And the thing that's special about this vehicle was it wasn't a big, humongous thing. It was a HGV, but it was nice and compact. And because of that, it was unique. And the insurance company didn't quite know how to value it. Now, this vehicle got vandalized, and when it got vandalized, it happened as a result of somebody thinking that the people who owned the van was somebody else. So it was just completely random, and they had no idea why it happened. But it was a result of whoever did it thought there was somebody else, like I said. So it got paint stripper thrown all the way over it. Now, because the vehicle's so unique, they just wanted the vehicle repaired. Now, the problem with it having paint stripper thrown all over it and acid was that box itself is glass fiber and it's sealed up with silicone, and it rots it. So the insurance company was concerned that even if they repaired it, it might continue to become damaged after being repaired because you don't know where the acid is going on the paint stripper. So they wanted to total loss the vehicle. They placed the valuation out, and they were originally at something like £30,000. The customer was massively upset because their expectations was that this vehicle was worth about 115. So there was a big variance there. I was providing different sets of service. So I was actually acting as an engineer to value the vehicle for them, as well as providing insurance consultancy. So I had one of my colleagues do the valuation for me. And all this customer wanted was for the vehicle to be repaired. Mm-hmm. Now, the insurance company come back and said, right, well, yeah, we might have got it slightly wrong, and looked at increasing the valuation. And I kept pushing this point that they wanted the vehicle repaired. They looked at the valuation that we provided for them, and we ended up around the £90,000 to £100,000 mark. And the issue with it then was that they still wanted to deal with that on a total loss basis, but they wanted to deduct some of money for the salvage of the vehicle. So they said, like, right, what we'll do is we'll value the vehicle at 50 grand. We'll deduct £20,000 for the salvage of the vehicle if you want to retain it, and then you can go away and repair it. So I still continue to argue and said no. Finally got them to a point where I was at £105,000 for the valuation on the vehicle. But what happened was that they agreed to not deal with it as a total loss, which then meant they didn't deduct the salvage amount at 30 grand. So the customer ended up receiving the actual cost of repair at £90,000. So I obtained a £60,000 increase in settlement for the customer. So that stands out as probably being one of the highest. The customer was absolutely over the moon and in disbelief, but the insurance company were fantastic all the way through it. Now, not all insurance companies are like that. Has been nice to deal with. So, like I said, everybody who works at an F.I.E.A, I think you're a fantastic company. I can't take my hat off enough and add on it to you. You're great. Other insurance companies aren't so great. So the ones that aren't so great, I won't tell you who they are because they might come after me if I say quite how bad they are. But you need to be aware of that. So even though I'm not going to specifically say how atrocious these insurance companies are, do your research, go onto Google before you take out any type of insurance policy. Look at what type of customer satisfaction indexes they've got, or what reviews they've got, or did they have loads of complaints on it? Because it's all well and good to go onto a price comparison website and think, yeah, that's a cheap quote, it'll do what I want. It's not a cheap quote if you can't benefit from the policy. So if you're spending 500 quid for an insurance policy thinking it's cheap, and then you have an accident and they don't pay out, it's not a cheap policy, it's an expensive one. So do your research, look at the reviews, look at what people are saying about it. Look on Trustpilot, look at Google, go on Facebook. Are there individual groups on Facebook where everybody who's on that group is dissatisfied with that insurance company? So look out for that. But other things that I've done are, in terms of like what you might phrase as being a good news story, are the ones that I've just really enjoyed doing. And I absolutely love doing the impossible. And I've even said to the customer at the very start of it, going like, well, no, your chances of getting this resolved are pretty slim. And what I love even more is when you've got a customer on board. So I'm sure you've had the same thing where you've had somebody reach out to you and they said, like, I've got this situation with X company and I don't know what to do. Can you help me, Helen? And you go, yeah, great, no problem. And you make them aware in terms of, potentially you might be able to help them, but you can't guarantee success at the end of it. And they go, no, Helen, you crack on, you help me, go on. And so when you've got a situation like that, it is a buzz, isn't it? When you know you're going to a company and you're thinking like the chances of success are slim or impossible, and I've had quite a few cases where I've literally fought them over a year, 2 years, some of them have been that long, and had a
Very
customer.
satisfying. I think the word is very
Oh,
satisfying.
it's one thing that my wife says to me is that she sees me have the conversations with insurance companies where they're telling me the end outcome that's good news for a customer. And she sees the satisfaction in my face. But what's more humbling than that is when you actually ring up the customer to say, and some of these people as well that have been in horrific situations where it might be there's some personal aspects where somebody in the family's died and it could be their, they've took over the estate and they're dealing with it. So they're dealing with the grief side of it and having to deal with an insurance claim as being awkward, and there's, the cancelling policies and all sorts of things in the background that are really nasty. And usually gone in and gone, I'll tell you what, don't worry about paying me, because like I said, I do enjoy it. So I do some stuff like pro bono. I'll take that stress away from you, and I'll if we can sort it out, I can't guarantee success on it, but I'll take it off you and I'll do it. And there's nothing better than going, right, so don't worry about anything. Everything's going to be fine. All the issues you had are now resolved. The insurance company's going to look after it. They're going to pay you out, and this is what you're going to pay out the settlement to you. And you hear somebody cry down the phone to you, and you're like, and I get massive lumps in my throat. And my wife sees it to me, and she's going like, you must get so much satisfaction in what you're doing. And it is that knowing that you can help people, and certain people are in predicaments that, they might feel a bit lost. They don't know what to do. They don't know, they don't have the time to research things the way, that I do to the level that I do. Or even to kind of reach out, they might even not know that you can reach out to somebody to look out to, to help them through a situation. So doing something where you get that satisfaction where you've just helped somebody is what I just love. And it's always really humbling when you hear the effects it has on them.
Absolutely. And it is that satisfaction of, yes, we won. It was hard work, but it won, because sometimes it's ones that are the harder work that get the more satisfaction, because it's just like, I'm now just going to keep going. But it's about empowering other people, because I think for me, it's also about making sure that people, that you do show them how it's done. And then, because that's like my blog, show people how it's done and empower them to do it, so that when they next have a complaint, they feel empowered to be able to do it themselves, so that they're not taken for a ride again, and that they can keep fighting. Which is, I think what people like you and I do is try and empower people so that they can continue to fight.
And that is exactly my philosophy in the way I do things. So my website is www.motorclaimguru.co.uk. 90% of the stuff that you need to do as part of the claim, I've actually set my website up so you don't need me, which might sound really odd and counterintuitive, but I've done it so that all the information that you need to help you out with an insurance claim is on my website. So that all you need to do is, if there's a specific area that you're having a difficulty with, there's a magnifying glass on the top right hand side of my website. You can click on it and put in what your issue is. And my website is huge. It's absolutely massive. There's something like 10 to 15,000 pages of information on there. So there's a lot on there. So using the magnifying glass is an easy way of doing it. But on the top of it are the main things it might look after, but you might want to look for in terms of what to do after an accident, how best to claim. So do a claim through an accident management company, through the insurance company. I've gone through the pros and cons on it. But I do that so that you don't need to use me. But what it also does is it helps me to help you, that when you've gone through that information, then you realise that, potentially you feel a bit out of your depth and you need somebody who is a specialist and somebody who's an expert, that you can then come to me and you can ask me a specific question and go, Tim, gone through your website, appreciate the information you put on there, it's really helpful. However, I'm still not sure on this. And then you can ask me a question. And again, anybody who comes through to my website, so anybody who's listening, if you send me an email when you got a question, I'll answer it for free. I won't charge you. The only time I'd actually charge anybody for my services is when I actively need to do something where I'm dealing with an insurance company. But aside from that, if you've got a question, feel free to contact it. And again, if I could do things there where I'm helping you make the best out of an insurance claim, and you do it on your own, and then you feel empowered because that information's out there, just because now you are aware of your rights, then all power to you. Do it. Just read. That's all you need to do. The information is there.
What would be your top 3 tips for making an insurance company pay out?
The first tip is make sure you insure yourself through a good insurance company. Again, a line of thought might be, you're actually in the process of making a claim. How do you force them to do it? The best thing to do is make sure you get a good insurance company to start. So be willing to pay a little bit extra for a good insurance company. The second thing is read your policy. So again, it might be a bit counterintuitive that you're kind of asking the question, how best to make an insurance company claim, but understanding what your policy covers and what the terms and conditions of it are a really powerful tool, because that way, when you do need to make a claim, you can go to the insurance company and go, this is what your policy says. And what you've got there is a legally binding contract between me and you, where you've agreed to indemnify me for my financial loss. Why aren't you fulfilling your contract? So something as simple as that of knowing the contractual wordings. But this next bit now kind of gets more into your area of consumer law. So just because something is in a contract doesn't mean that it's legally binding. So often what I get from customers is that, well, I appreciate what you're saying, Tim, but my contract says that, as an example, if I want to use my own repairer, my insurance company have told me that they're going to apply an increased excess on my policy. Now, what I go back to insurance companies with is that this would be potentially a breach of the Unfair Terms and Conditions in Consumer Contract Regulations, 1999, part of Consumer Rights Act, in that where you have something in a contract where the contract's pre-drafted, well, any insurance contract is, so where the customer's not had the opportunity to negotiate those terms and conditions, well, they haven't, and where that part of that contract might cause a financial detriment to the consumer and favours one party over another, well, certainly charging you more money for your legal entitlement to choose whoever you use your repairer, I would probably say is going to be deemed to be an unfair term and condition. That term and condition should be retracted for the contract whilst the rest of the contract remains in place. So just you having that knowledge of going to an insurance company and saying, well, I understand you're telling me it's in my contract, but I know my consumer rights. Yeah. So yes, you can tell me it applies. I don't believe it does. I think you should retract that contract, retract that term from the contract whilst allowing me to use my own repairer. Now, the other thing of being aware of having to make insurance companies pay out on claims, insurance companies will absolutely hate me for saying this. Anytime you complain and then you take that to the Financial Ombudsman Service, the insurance company gets charged by the Ombudsman to review the complaint. The current cost of raising a complaint to the Ombudsman is £850. Now, if, for example, going off that example I've just used there, where they're saying we're going to increase your excess in your policy, and you've got a 250 excess, and they say we're going to double it to £500. Well, whether the insurance companies think it's fair or not, tough. You know, I don't think they're particularly nice entities to deal with a lot of the time. If you advise them that you're going to take it to an ombudsman, they're very conscious of the fact it's going to be £850 to go to the ombudsman. What you may well then find is that they advise that as a gesture of goodwill, they'll waive it on this occasion. So use that as a tool, as leverage to make them do what is beneficial to you and not beneficial to them.
Absolutely. And on that note, please tell everybody where they can find you. I know you mentioned the website, but let's mention it again, and your social media.
Yeah, so I am on www.motorclaimguru.co.uk. So that's motorclaimguru.co.uk. You can also find me on Facebook at MotorClaimGuru. Send me again on Twitter at MotorClaimGuru. I am on Instagram as well, but I don't particularly do much on that. And also on LinkedIn as well. If you type in my name as Tim Kelly MotorClaimGuru, you'll find me. I do loads of content on there. And you might also find me in other pieces of media. So I've done bits on TV and radio, and as we're doing now, and also for Autocar magazine and a few other bits and bobs. So just Google my name. I'm sure it'll pop up somewhere.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. It's been really interesting, and I hope people have found that really helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for inviting me on as well. Very much appreciate it. Because I said the main thing I want to do.
I'm sure we'll have you back and talking about another aspect of motoring, I'm sure, in the future.
Yeah, that'll be great. I said, I mean, the main thing I want to do is just educate customers. So yeah, I really appreciate you asking me on. It's very kind of you.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you found that really useful and interesting, and thank you for listening. And if you have a topic you'd like me to discuss on the show, you can email me on helen@eastlondonradio.org.uk. You can find me on my website, thecomplainingcow.co.uk, for information on consumer issues, including rights and money-saving matters and stuff, and all the other episodes of the Complaining Cow Consumer Show on East London Radio. You can find me on Twitter @ComplainingCow and @TheComplainingCow on Instagram and Facebook. And you can get 15% off the books, How to Complain, the Essential Consumer Guide to Getting Refunds, Redress and Results, and 101 Habits of an Effective Complainer off my website with the code ELRCOW. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye.